I know it may not look like it on the surface, but I cherish Rosalie dearly, Felicia Carter said, holding her teacup. Rita watched her, not saying a word. 10 years ago, Felicia Carter sat in a garden after her marriage to Marquis Amber. She observed someone approaching and saw Rosalie holding a bouquet of hand-picked roses, fidgeting nervously. She noticed the bruises on Rosalie's hands. Go away, Felicia told her, picking up her teacup. I detest children, she added. Rosalie flinched, tears building in her eyes as she sniffed gently. My apologies, she said softly, stuttering. She turned and stepped away from her stepmother slowly, a rose falling from her hand, unnoticed. Felicia's eyes fixed on the fallen rose. Humph, what a toady little pest, she thought angrily. Rosalie soon approached her father, Marquis Amber. What is the matter, Rosalie? He asked, leaning down to rub her head gently. She blushed as she looked at him, her eyes still holding teardrops. Felicia gritted her teeth in spite as she watched them from her chair. How in the world did I, the great Felicia Carter, end up marrying such a dull man with a silly child? She thought, clenching her fists and gripping the teacup tightly. It's infuriating, she thought. In the evening, Felicia was still sitting down, enjoying the quiet environment with her eyes closed as though she was sleeping. What do you like it? Rosalie whispered, stuttering as she approached, but was shushed quietly by her father. They didn't know that Felicia could hear them, her ears twitching to their noise. Are they taking the chance to badmouth me while I'm asleep? Just try. I'll destroy you, she thought, still keeping her eyes closed. Marquis Amber and Rosalie stared at Felicia from a short distance. Rose, why do you stare at your stepmother like that? Marquis Amber asked his daughter. I love her so much. I wish to embrace her just once. But I was afraid that if I did, she would wake. So, I'm embracing her with my eyes, Rosalie said warmly, fixing her gaze on the ground. My little Rose, how kind-hearted you are, he said, patting her head gently and holding some sheets. Marquis Amber covered Felicia with the sheet he had. Your stepmother needs time. For now, all we can do is wish her sweet dreams. Let's go, he told Rosalie, cheering her up. Okay, Rosalie said with a happy face. They set out on their way, walking gently and leaving Felicia all by herself. Midway, Rosalie turned, catching a glimpse of Felicia. Letting go of her dad's hand, she returned softly to Felicia. Rosalie reached out her hand, holding Felicia's arm and squeezing lightly. Sweet dreams, mother, Rosalie said cheerfully. She let go and walked away with her father, leaving Felicia Carter all to herself. What a strange pair, Felicia thought, opening her eyes and watching them leave. She saw the rose on the floor. Fixing her gaze on it, she didn't say a word. Getting up from her chair, Felicia bent down and picked up the rose. I may not be able to love Rose like my own, but I love her as if she were a much younger sister. That is why I worry for her, Felicia Carter said after reminiscing about her first encounter with Rosalie. The Alberhart name is indeed great and has scarcely a flaw. It is a great comfort to know my daughter has befriended the daughter of such a noble family, she said, holding her teacup close to her mouth. Your family is rich, so you want nothing from Rosalie, yes? Is that what she means? Just how many times has Rosalie been scammed? Rita thought, sipping her tea but fixing her gaze on Felicia. I fear Rosalie's fiancé's failure to attend greatly upsets her, Rita said, her concern evident. May I ask what kind of man he is? Rita asked Felicia, dropping her teacup. Is he good to Rose? Felicia twitched a bit. In the world, there are always idiots who are incapable of recognizing the good fortune they have been blessed with, she said. I agree, Rosalie is far too good for such fools, Rita said with a smile. What are you suggesting? Felicia Carter asked Rita, fixing her gaze, not smiling. Should you not remove a pesky fly from your precious Rose? Rita told her. Hardly a month has passed since you've befriended that child. I doubt this comes from a place of simple friendship, Felicia said. I abhor your younger brother. His Excellency, Marquis Proud Carter? That is why I exposed the violence of his right-hand man, Jean Lawrence. And I intend on destroying his new lackey, Nathan Hector, as well, she said, revealing her plans to Felicia. Why? I always thought Proud was on good terms with the Alberharts. Unless he is an idiot, I doubt he would have set his sights on your family, Felicia said, looking worried. Marquis Carter destroyed my dear friend, Rita said, clenching onto her cup. 10 years ago, she and her mother fell into great ruin. Do you perhaps recall Baron Wicker and his daughter, Miss Rita? Rita asked, stunning Felicia immediately. Felicia went quiet for a while. Rita of the Wicker family, Felicia said softly. A few days later, Rita returned to the Amber estate. She walked into the garden for a secret meeting with Felicia Carter. It seems to me that Rita Wicker died of consumption a few months ago. Am I right? Felicia asked as she sat down, sobbing. Yes, I had lost contact with her for 10 years. By chance, I reunited with her at the facility while participating in charity, only to find out that my secret friend I'd been pals with a decade ago was terminally ill, Rita said, tears dripping down her cheeks. It was just. She covered her eyes, sobbing. Even the great Felicia Carter would be hard-pressed to find 10-year-old letters, Rita thought as she peeked at her amidst her fake tears. She has no choice but to believe me, Rita said inwardly. I cannot imagine what a shock it must have been to lose your dear pen pal like that overnight. Rita had been disowned after she was accused of being illegitimate. She told me the mastermind behind the accusation was Marquis Proud Carter, Rita said, revealing this to Felicia. Baron Wicker, Felicia said softly. Do you have any information? Rita asked, begging despite her sniffing. Of course. The decisive factor that caused me to lose to Proud in our rivalry was none other than Baron Wicker, Felicia said immediately, puzzling Rita, who was shocked to her bones. Pardon? What do you mean? Rita questioned Felicia, unable to believe her ears. My brother and I were equal in every way, so our parents had us each perform a demonstration that would benefit the family, Felicia told Rita with a sigh, her facial expression turning sad. So mother and I were ruined as a demonstration to decide an inheritance rivalry? Rita thought with anger. While I recruited new trade partners for our family, that boy restored our household's power by destroying the family that had gained their independence from us. The family of Baron Wicker, Felicia said, revealing Baron Wicker's plot. Oh my lord, Rita exclaimed. That bastard. He ruined me and my mother over a rivalry, Rita thought, clenching her fist hard as she sank into a world of hate for Proud Carter. It's a pity about the young Miss Wicker. If she were still alive, I would have offered her some compensation to apologize for my awful brother, Felicia said, dropping her cup of coffee. Thank you for being so candid with me. I'm sure it isn't easy for you, she told Rita. Not at all. Thank you for understanding my childish feelings of resentment, Marquis, Rita replied calmly, no longer crying. Don't thank me yet. I left the Carter household years ago, and I have no intention of risking my present happiness, Felicia told her. I've given you a hand, but you'll have to take care of the rest yourself. I came to steal the fiancé. I'm already satisfied she hasn't objected, Rita thought, delighted. Of course, she said, smiling. However, I do expect this from you, Lady Verta. You have something. It reminds me of my old self, Felicia said, presenting a sealed envelope on the table. My brother is the head of the administration. Nathan Hector is merely his lackey. This is a letter recommending you as a temporary assistant for the administrative division. Use it to remove Nathan from Rose's life once and for all, she said, instructing Rita as she glanced through the document Felicia presented to her. Rita smiled, content with this news. Outside the Amber estate, Rita was met by Rosalie and her stepsister Lily. Beth? Rosalie called out, surprising Rita as she made her way to her carriage. Oh my Rose. Good afternoon, Rita said, greeting them both. You had tea time with mother? Lily asked her. You met with my mother? Why didn't she tell me? Rosalie asked, pondering over their secret meeting. She was very pleased that you had invited a friend over. She invited me to tea and asked me to be good friends with you, Rita told Rosalie, smiling. She said that? Truly? Rosalie asked, getting flushed as she smiled. You have a wonderful mother, Rita said with a smile. Oh, John. You bought the box, yes? Rita called out, turning to John. Bring it here, she said. Both sisters glanced at each other, not understanding what was going on. Rosalie felt someone's presence. She turned to find John's face leaning closer to her with a dead look. Both sisters were startled as Rosalie clung to her sister with fear, trying to hide her face from John's gaze. "This is my coachman," Rita revealed as Rosalie opened her eye, taking a peek at John. "Pay him no mind. He always looks like this," Rita explained as John stood behind her holding a box. "My goodness. I thought he was a ghost," Rosalie thought, flushing as she was terrified. "I see," she stuttered, while Lily watched quietly but tensely. "Rose, do you like gifts?" Rita asked. "Pardon? Do you mean, you are giving this to me?" Rosalie asked, appearing shocked by the box Rita presented to her. "I had it made especially for you." "Open it," Rita said, insisting politely. "Thank you so much, Ver," Rosalie said with a smile, opening her gift. Inside were matching rosaries. "It's just an old superstition, but they say the man and woman who wear each half will share a long and happy love," Rita explained with a faint smile. "Oh, Ver," Rosalie exclaimed, clutching the box with tears of joy in her eyes. "By chance, does your fiancé have no inclinations towards jewelry?" "No, Nathan has no objections, and these rosaries are so beautiful." "How could he ever say no?" Rosalie replied excitedly. "I had them specially made for your highness, so I hope you wear them often," Rita said, genuinely delighted. "Of course," Rosalie agreed, clutching her gift tightly. She rushed to hug Rita. "Thank you truly, Ver. I'm so happy we became friends," she said joyfully. Silly Rosalie, Rita thought inwardly. Those rosaries were made to ruin the connection between lovers. "Soon enough, I will steal your beloved fiancé away. Just you wait." A few days later, at the royal palace, Julie yawned as she walked. Julie sighed inwardly, lamenting her current role as a secretarial assistant in the military division, feeling far removed from her aspirations in the royal guard. As she walked gently, Julie overheard snippets of conversation from passing officers that caught her attention. "Did you see her?" said one man. "She's quite pretty," remarked another. Curious, Julie tuned in to the murmurs around her. "Something's a little odd today." "The administrative division, you said?" asked the first officer. "That's what I heard. The entire place is in an uproar," confirmed the second officer. Julie furrowed her brow, perplexed by the sudden commotion. What in the world is going on at the administrative division? She wondered silently. Amidst the bustling crowd, Julie spotted a familiar face, Officer James and Officer Alex. Determined to satisfy her curiosity, she approached them. "Officer James, Officer Alex, pardon the interruption, but where are you headed?" Julie inquired, drawing one of the officers aside. "Oh, Miss Julia, heading to work? Good to see you," the officer greeted, catching Julie off guard. "We're on our way to the administrative division," he continued, which puzzled Julie. "Why? Did something happen?" she asked, only to be met with laughter from Officer Alex. "Perhaps," he winked mischievously. "A new assistant started today, apparently very pretty," he informed Julie. "Pardon?" Julie reacted in disbelief as they bid her farewell and left her standing there. "How absurd," Julie muttered with disgust. As she listened to other officers discussing the newcomer, Julie overheard them mention Verta, you know, the one who testified at court. Count Alberhart. Her shock was palpable as she processed this unexpected information. Meanwhile, in the administrative division, Rita sat at her desk, engrossed in reading documents. Nathan Hector of all days, she thought to herself with frustration, the damn bastard chose today to attend to matters outside the office. He's nowhere to be seen. What if he's already caught on and now he's messing with me? Rita's mind raced with concern about Nathan potentially disrupting her plans. In the administrative office, officers murmured among themselves upon seeing Rita. She sat quietly, attending to some work. "Look at how beautiful she is. She's as beautiful as an angel," one officer said, visibly blushing as he watched her keenly. "And her figure, unbelievable," another officer added, drooling. "Humph, am I some sort of circus attraction to them?" Rita thought, observing the onlookers with a straight face. "Silence, please. Such ruckus during work hours is unacceptable." A lady's voice rang out, making the office instantly quiet. "This is the administrative office of Osland, where we see to important affairs of the state," she continued, her tone stern. If you are an official who receives his wages from the royal family, I suggest you remember your posts, she said with a disdainful look, causing the officers to shrink back in fear. Let's go. If Officer Heather gets upset, it will only be trouble, one officer whispered to the other as they mumbled and moved away. So her name is Heather, Rita noted. She's got quite a loud voice, but her looks are so plain. Does she not care for appearances, or perhaps she has no money? Rita thought while glancing at her. The officers slowly made their way out of the office. Heather is why I'm usually too intimidated to come here, one of the officers muttered, which Heather overheard. She glared at Rita. Miss Verta, please? Heather said, calling for Rita. Rita got up from her seat and walked gently to Heather's table. You are here to work, yes? Heather asked, glaring at Rita. If so, why are you dressed like that? You look as if you are on your way to a garden party, she said rudely, referring to Rita's dress. What's wrong with the way I'm dressed? My uniform is no different from the other employees. It isn't my fault this body naturally looks beautiful in anything it wears, Rita thought, watching Heather calmly. This is not a ball, this is a place of work. Understand? Heather said, her tone a bit high. The other officers glanced at them. So she is the type to act self-assured, then loudly condemn other women. I swear her sort is inescapable, Rita thought inwardly. Oh dear, does my attire somehow violate the dress code? If you could elaborate, I'll be sure to address it in the future, Rita said softly, tilting her head slightly. Your clothes positively cling to your body. The daughter of a noble family should be virtuous. This sort of frivolity is unacceptable, Heather rebuked, pointing at her. But I had this made at the boutique that specializes in officer uniforms. Strange, if they were made by the same boutique, why is there such a difference between mine and yours? Rita asked Heather. The officers watched them, causing Heather to flush with embarrassment. So you're claiming you had no intention to flaunt? Earrings, a bracelet, even a ring. It's obvious you are only here to peacock around. Heather accused. I do not recall the dress code prohibiting jewelry, Rita said calmly. Pardon me, but both that officer and that officer are currently wearing jewelry, she added, pointing at two other female officers. Does this rule perhaps only apply to me? She questioned, turning red as she placed her hand against her chest. Now it just seems as if I envy her, Heather thought, gritting her teeth in frustration. Those officers have never caused any commotion, but you, Miss Verta, have been the cause of continuous disturbance within our office, she said, clenching her fist. So that's how she is justifying herself, Rita thought. Officer Heather, could you please lower your voice? Like you said, I'd hate to continue disturbing the other officers, Rita said, sniffing her nose as she appeared to fake sadness. Huh? What did you just? Heather was about to shout before being interrupted by other officers. She's right, Heather. Could you please quiet down? Said one officer. I have to complete this analysis of the provisional draft budget by the end of the day. Why raise your voice over nothing? Another officer added. Ooh, scary Officer Heather, they murmured. Heather's face flushed with embarrassment as she realized the attention she had drawn. Rita maintained her calm demeanor, inwardly satisfied with the turn of events. Ugh, the more I push, the more this will backfire, Heather thought, holding her head in confusion. Since it is your first day, I will let this go for now, but be more careful in the future, she told Rita with a sigh. Yes, officer, Rita said, bowing before stepping away from her presence. Just you wait and see, Rita thought, observing Heather with her side eyes as she walked away. After a while in the administrative office, Julie Shade walked gently, making her way to Rita's office. Unlike me, a brilliant employee of the military, those saps in administration are more fragile things that wrestle with paperwork, she said to herself, walking with pride. She saw Heather coming out of the office. Excuse me, I'm here to see my good friend Count Alberhart. Is she here? Julie asked, causing Heather to flinch. Who knows? Please see to your own personal business yourself, Heather said, turning her head away. She walked away rudely from Julie. What? What a rude woman, Julie thought, watching in awe. If you're here to see Miss Verta, I'm afraid you just missed her, an officer said to her. She left to meet with someone else not too long ago. Pardon? Julie questioned. You didn't know? She left to meet with your elder brother, Sir Blaine of the Treasury Department. Julie's eyes opened wide. What? She exclaimed. Meanwhile, Blaine Shade and Rita walked hand in hand somewhere outside the administrative building. How did you know it was my first day at work? Rita asked him gently as they walked. A rumor about a beautiful aide in the administrative office has had the entire place in an uproar all day. How could I not know? Blaine told her with a smile. Rita thought, glancing at him sweetly. So now that you've seen this beautiful aide for yourself, what do you think? Do I satisfy the expectations of a finance officer? Rita said, posing for him. He laughed lightly. You exceed them, Miss Verta. So, how is your first day going? Blaine asked her. With Proud Carter being away on extended business, I came here intending to seduce Nathan, but he's nowhere to be seen. Then some chihuahua of a woman picked a fight with me, she thought, her mood changing. If I am honest, it's been terrible. Are you familiar with Officer Heather? She is a third-degree administrator, Rita asked Blaine. Heather Maximilian? Baron Maximilian's wife? Dark blue hair and short? He said, describing her. She's married? So a man smart enough to marry her, she thought. Well, she said aloud, she told me the way I dressed disgraces the sanctity of the royal palace. What do you think? She asked, showing off some more. I think it's a relief you weren't hired as an assistant for the Ministry of Finance. Your presence would have driven all the officers mad. Thankfully, our deadlines were spared of such misfortune, Blaine said with a smile. You have such a way with words. Your tongue drips both honey and poison, Rita says giggling. Blaine holds her hand, gently fiddling with her fingers, squeezing them lightly. Heather Maximilian's story is a sorry one, unlike other aristocrats who work in the palace for fame and power. She works because she needs to pay, he tells her. All that sanctimonious pump, yet her own family penniless? Rita thought inwardly. This wasn't always the case, Blaine says as they resume their walk. Her father was quite a respectable count, but she fell for the wrong man and ended up in her present situation, he informs her. How unfortunate. So Heather's parents don't provide any support for their poor daughter then, I presume, Rita asks, sounding worried. Despite their opposition, they both doggedly insisted on marriage, he told her, observing intently. Rita thought to herself, oh dear, poor Heather, wearing a smirk as Blaine glanced at her. He halted their movement and placed his hand on her shoulder, leaning forward to whisper in her ear. Heather's husband, Baron Maximilian, runs a small jewelry shop in the capital city. For them, even modest sales are an important source of income, he said, catching Rita's attention. Is that so? They make such little money as it is. It would be a pity if someone were to get in the way of their business, she said with a grin, looking at Blaine's face delightedly. Rita hugged him excitedly, thinking, I feel so much better. Blaine thought to himself, how amusing. He smiled softly, adding inwardly, I've never met a woman as interesting as her. Back in the administrative building, Rita was in Officer Assyrian's office. It's a pleasure to meet you, Verta. My name is Assyrian, the man said, introducing himself. I look forward to working together. Officer Assyrian, Rita said, bowing politely. I've heard quite a lot about you from Felicia, Rita said, glancing at Assyrian, causing him to smile softly. Assyrian, a level 1 officer, held a high rank, and Rita thought he would be an invaluable support. I should have been here for your first day, but unfortunately, there was urgent business outside the office. Have you gotten acquainted with the other officers? He asked, still smiling. Yes, I've met everyone who was working within the office, Rita thought cheerfully. Thanks to Heather's outburst this morning, every officer in the building jumped at their chance to offer support as well as an introduction, she thought, still smiling at Assyrian. I'm glad to hear it. Then I suppose Officer Nathan is the only one left. He accompanied me outside the office yesterday, Assyrian told her as she watched him quietly. Nathan, a moment please, he called out. Nathan Hector stepped up, walking gently towards Assyrian's table. Rita fixed her gaze on him as he approached. Finally, that damned Nathan Hector, she thought, glaring at him. This is Nathan Hector, a level 2 official. And this is Miss Verta. From now on, she will be my assistant. It's her first day, so why don't you show her the ropes? Assyrian said, introducing them to each other. Nathan Hector, he said, introducing himself, facing Rita with a calm look. Verta Alberhart, she said, introducing herself. It's only my first day, so I still have much to learn, but I promise to work hard. I look forward to your instruction, she said with a smile. Nathan Hector was taken aback a bit by her demeanor. Indeed, welcome to the administrative division, he said to her. Her appearance is frail. I expected her to be shy, he thought inwardly, his gaze fixed on Rita. He's taken aback. I've left an impression, Rita thought, her gaze still fixed on him. Rita observed Nathan Hector's hand and noticed he wore the rosary she had given Rosalie as a gift. She was taken aback as she remembered giving Rosalie the matching rosaries, promising that the couples who wear each half would share a long and happy love. This memory caused Rosalie to hug Rita in appreciation. Rita smirked, impressed with Rosalie Amber's ability to convince her fiancé to wear the rosary. She wondered if Rosalie had mentioned that she was the one who had given it to him. Glancing at him, she couldn't discern much from his flat response. It's fine. No need to rush. Trying too hard to make a memorable first impression could backfire, she thought to herself, staying calm. A few days later, Rita's carriage moved slowly across the grasslands. Yosha, arms folded, questioned Rita about their destination. We're going shopping first, Rita replied with a smile. After that, I have some personal business to attend to. It's still uncertain, so I won't mention it just yet, she thought to herself. Looking out of the carriage window, Rita smiled at her reflection, reminiscing about meeting Proud Carter that day after court. Proud Carter, eliminating Jean Lawrence was just the beginning. Wait until I'm done with all of your people. I swear I'll make you kneel at my feet, she vowed inwardly. Ah, it's the perfect day for backstabbing, she thought, wearing a sly grin as the carriage continued on its way. She's thinking about destroying someone else again? Judging from her expression, they must have gravely offended her, Yosha thought, observing Rita's demeanor as they traveled in the carriage. He looked out the window, watching the streets pass by. It's already been 5 years since I first arrived here, Yosha thought with a touch of sadness, reminiscing about his home country. It is a wealthy place compared to my own homeland. Yet why do I still yearn for it so deeply? He thought. His gaze remained fixed outside the carriage's window. Rita observed Yosha calmly, finding him to have a beautiful profile. Who could imagine that this Yosha is actually a fearsome sorcerer from a faraway land? She wondered to herself. Yosha soon realized Rita was watching him. Why do you look at me like that? He questioned, his hand folding, making her tense. You noticed? My apologies, Rita said, looking tense herself. So, why did you assassinate Tatum's Sultan's mistress? Rita asked Yosha abruptly. Yosha hesitated for a moment, then replied, it's a bit late to ask. Oh, don't be like that. Tell me. I've told you my whole story, but you've never shared anything with me, Rita said, smiling cheerfully, teasing Yosha. Can we really call ourselves partners? She asked him. Yosha turned his head away, fixing his gaze back to the city outside the window. Rita didn't say another word to him. She raised her hand, revealing a ring she wore. Yen, you don't have to tell me now. If it's too difficult for you, some wounds will always ache no matter how much time has passed, Rita told him calmly. Yosha sighed inwardly, thinking, so she's decided to pin me as some weak sap who's wrestling with his past. When I first met you, do you know what the meaning of my introduction was? Yosha asked her. Rita quickly remembered their first encounter, where Yosha had told her his name, which meant second flame born from the desert's most brilliant sands. What sort of Tatum riddle is this? I told you everything, and this is how you repay me? Rita thought, wearing a straight look. The carriage came to a halt, and John knocked gently at the window. We've arrived, my lady, he said. Yosha got up, but Rita did not move. They say we've arrived, my lady, Yosha informed her. He walked towards the carriage's door and offered his hand to Rita. Shall we go, Miss Verta? Yosha asked, observing Rita closely. They arrived at a jewelry store, and Rita walked in as Yosha welcomed her. She held a hand fan to hide her face. Welcome, Lady Alberhart, an attendant named Louise said with a bow. My name is Louise. I'm the shopkeeper here at Undeterred. I'm honored you have chosen to visit our humble shop. Louise fixed his gaze at Rita, observing her appearance. Pearl earrings and a sapphire ring. Even with one glance, it's obvious how expensive they are, he thought to himself. Others are normally dazzled by my beauty, but this man assesses my jewelry first. Good, it seems he has an inclination for business, Rita thought inwardly as Louise took her hand and led her further into the shop. Louise proceeded to show Rita their jewelry collections. Not bad, but not great. It's just the right place to go against a mid-level family like the Maximilians, she thought. Louise glanced at her and could sense her dissatisfaction. I hate to admit it, but she is a class above our typical clientele. What in the world brings such a noble guest here? Louise wondered silently. What may I help you with today, my lady? Perhaps jewelry for an outing or a tea party, perhaps. Just say the word, Louise said to Rita, smiling as he led her through the store. Jewelry is not what I seek. What I seek are the rights to this shop, Rita said, uncovering her face and closing her fan. Louise was stunned by Rita's words. He composed himself and offered Rita tea as they sat down to discuss her business proposal. So she's offering to provide the necessary capital for the shop in exchange for ownership of the rights. It is a formidable offer indeed, but if I were to accept this proposal, it would mean becoming an enemy of the Maximilians. Is that what I want? Louise thought, trembling a bit as he fixed his gaze at Rita. To start, I'll invest 500,000 gold coins and 200 grand every year thereafter, Rita said, shocking Louise. With this much support, I could make Zucard a luxury shop in no time at all. But then again, nothing in this world is free, Louise thought, clenching his fist on his knee. What is her motive? He pondered. I heard that your shop recently purchased a large quantity of scarlet spinels, though the quality may be lesser than that of rubies. Spinels are a lovely option for autumn, which is soon arriving, Rita said. I see. Thank you very much for the tip, Louise replied, grateful for the advice. For Zucard's new autumn selection, what do you think about the red fire opal? Rita inquired further. The opal is a level above the spinel, but the price is cheaper, Rita instructed him. I beg your pardon, but the fire opal is worth more than the spinel. If we sell the opal for less, the more we sell, the greater the losses we'll suffer, Louise said, looking terrified at Rita's proposal. You can deduct those losses from the 500 grand I will invest, she said excitedly. Everything she says is just another shock. Even family would find such an offer difficult to make, Louise thought, sweating a bit, unable to say anything to her. Rita picked up her teacup. It's quite a lot of money just to outmaneuver Heather. But it'll take this much to give those parents of mine a great fight and finally have them come running from Tatum, she thought excitedly. I'm flattered by your generous offer. But I'm afraid I do not understand why in the world would you go to such lengths, Louise exclaimed with a tensed look. Rita fixed her gaze closely at him. Are you aware of Heather Maximilian's background? She asked him calmly. Louise nodded gently, signaling he was aware. Recently, I became colleagues with her at the palace's administrative division, where I chanced upon a shocking truth, she told him, her face looking serious. What truth? The jeweler questioned, clenching his fist hard as he leaned forward, his ears itching to hear what she had learned about the Maximilians. Rita glanced at him before fixing her look more seriously. What I tell you from this moment on must remain secret. You must swear not to breathe a word of this to anyone, she warned him sternly. Of course, Lady Verta. A mere businessman like me, who would I tell? He assured her, seriousness in his tone as he boldly pledged secrecy. Rita knew that Louise was right. High-class or noble clientele would typically avoid purchasing jewels from a shop like his. That's exactly why her bold scheme would become possible. As you know, the Maximilians are not a particularly wealthy family. Parts of a budget Lady Maximilian had reviewed failed to hold up, and just when I thought that was odd, Rita began, placing her teacup back on the saucer. I found that the Maximilian shop had purchased a large amount of spinels, Rita revealed, causing Louise to gasp in shock, his facial expression reflecting disbelief. I knew something was strange. How else would they have purchased that many spinels out of nowhere? Louise said, his anger evident. He gritted his teeth, visibly upset, but then calmed himself down with a sigh of relief. To think she would stoop to embezzlement. If it wasn't for you, my lady, I would have been none the wiser, he told her gratefully. Normally, Rita would have told him that she wanted to report Lady Maximilian to the aristocratic courts, but she couldn't bring herself to do something so harsh. You see, she's been an extremely kind mentor, Rita calmly informed Louise, her thoughts drifting back to her first encounter with Heather Maximilian in the administrative division. She recalled Heather's rude remark about her dressing style and how Heather seemed to be overly trying to be kind. She was practically tripping over herself in her efforts to be so kind. She should have just let sleeping dogs lie, Rita thought, wearing a smirk as she observed Louise's reaction. If the Maximilian jewelry shop were to go out of business, Heather could finally return to being an upstanding administrator for our kingdom. I believe she can become a lady of integrity once more, Rita told Louise, her smile soft and genuine. My word, you are a true lady, Lady Verta. You have a heart of gold, Louise responded, looking flushed with admiration. Rita couldn't help but wear a cheerful smile. Her plans were now set in motion. After concluding her meeting with Louise, Rita stepped out of the jewelry shop into the rain. Things were unfolding in her favor. Yosha held an umbrella over her head, shielding her from the downpour. Suddenly, she remembered something, causing her face to flinch slightly. Yen, it's such a beautiful day. Shall we take a walk? It'd be a shame to return home so early, she said to Yosha with a smile. They ventured out into the rainy streets, walking gently until they stopped at a particular spot. How long must we wait here? Yosha asked, appearing tired. 5 more minutes, she replied, her arms folded. She couldn't afford to miss this opportunity. Perhaps I should simply leave her here, Yosha thought, sighing inwardly. Suddenly, someone caught Rita's eye. He's here, she thought. A man, covered in a cloak and walking in the rain, strolled through the streets. It was Hector, the person she had been waiting for. Rita abruptly pulls Yosha into a nearby street, leaving them both exposed to the rain. She swiftly removes one of her shoes and hurls it against the wall, breaking its heel. What are you doing? Yosha asks, visibly tense and startled by Rita's sudden actions. Yen. Hand me the umbrella. Now, make yourself scarce over there, hurry, Rita commands, pushing Yosha away despite her shock. Yosha wonders anxiously about Rita's intentions as she obeys her instructions. Rita proceeds to destroy her umbrella, cementing her plan. Find me some shoes to wear and return for me in 30 minutes' time, understand? Rita says cheerfully to Yosha, outlining her request clearly before sending her off on the task. Hector walked briskly through the street as Rita deliberately ran towards him, colliding as if by accident. She cried out in pain, feigning surprise at encountering him. Miss Verta? Hector said, clearly perplexed by the encounter. Officer Nathan. What a coincidence, Rita exclaimed, pretending to be shocked. Hector looked at her with concern, noticing her soaked state. Where is your umbrella? Here, wear this, he said gently, removing his cloak and draping it over her shoulders. What are you doing here alone? You're completely soaked, he asked, worried. Just about 5 minutes ago, I accidentally broke my umbrella, Rita explained, frustrated as she crumpled her broken umbrella in her hand. Shall we get out of this rain? Hector suggested, guiding her towards shelter. They stood in front of a building. Where have all your servants gotten to? He asked softly. Rita quickly concocted a story, telling him she had come to the area to pick up an order, but the road was too narrow for her carriage. She and her butler had no choice but to walk, and then her shoe's heel broke suddenly. It's not like I could have climbed onto my butler's back, so he gave me the umbrella to wait while he fetched my shoes from the carriage. But then, Rita started, trying to shake water off her wet dress. Then your umbrella broke, correct? Hector interrupted, finishing her sentence, his expression cold as he avoided eye contact. Oh my, it's like you were there, officer. Perhaps you were the one who broke my umbrella? Rita said playfully, giggling to herself, which made him glance at her. Rita adjusted her hair, revealing her ears, noticing Hector staring at her earring with a tense expression. Lo and behold, so this is what arouses him, she thought, wearing a grin as her plan began to take shape. Rita recalled her days working in the tavern in her true form, where she often encountered men like Hector. Men who had preferences beyond breasts and hips. But she wasn't going to jump to conclusions just yet. She needed to be sure her observations were correct. "The downpour has soaked my hair completely," Rita said, looking flushed as she readjusted her hair, deliberately exposing her neck more prominently for him to see. Hector couldn't help but glance at her neck, his face reddening. Just as I expected, Rita thought, pleased that her theory was proving true. Pretending not to notice his glances, Rita suddenly caught his eye, causing him to gasp in surprise. Hector quickly averted his gaze, pretending not to have been looking at her. The rain continued to fall gently around them as Rita and Hector stood in silence. "Anyone might think you're in a foul mood," Rita thought to herself, observing his aloof demeanor. How predictable. Rita knew men like Hector often sought obedience rather than love from women. If they couldn't be the hero, they found ways to manipulate and control. To think such a man depends on his fiancée's power, she mused, imagining Rosalie's potential suffering. She noticed he was still wearing the rosary she had given Rosalie. He's still wearing it, very good. The longer he does, the stronger the effects, she thought, a faint smile crossing her lips. "Pardon me," Rita said calmly, adopting a charming expression. "What's the matter, Lady Verta?" Hector asked, turning his gaze to her. "I'm afraid I didn't properly thank you earlier. You see, this is my first time being stranded on the streets like this, and I must admit, I was quite frightened. My shoe broke, my umbrella was destroyed, and then, like a miracle, you appeared before me. Thank you for your help, Officer Nathan." "If it hadn't been for you," Rita said with a grateful smile. "All I did was offer you a raincoat," Hector replied, perplexed by her excessive gratitude. "Yet the daughter of a count treats me so kindly, even though I am just a baron." "Verta," Hector began to say, but was interrupted by Yosha's sudden arrival.
"Miss Verta."
"I apologize for the delay," Yosha exclaimed, hurrying over with an umbrella in hand. He knelt down to remove Rita's damaged shoe, discreetly assessing Hector as he did so. As Yosha changed Rita's shoe, she couldn't help but think, this man is an administrator? He looks more like the sword-wielding type. He's even more intimidating in person. "I quite fancy an angular face," he thought. Once Rita stood properly in her new shoe, she suggested, "My carriage isn't far. What do you say, Officer Nathan? You were my rescuer today. Care to ride together?" Hector declined politely, saying, "I'm afraid I have other matters to attend to. Please accept my thanks instead." "I shall take my leave now," he said before calmly walking away, leaving Rita feeling satisfied. She smirked to herself, thinking, I suppose this was only the first taste. If he had fallen for it immediately, it wouldn't be any fun. The following day at the Alberhart Manor, Rita stayed indoors. She had caught a cold from being out in the rain during her encounter with Hector the previous day. Rita sneezed loudly, realizing she had caught a cold. Still, being sick as a noble isn't too bad, she thought, pleased that she could rest as long as she liked. She reclined in her favorite chair in the parlor, indulging in chocolates placed on a nearby table. "Miss, is there anything else you require?" Jana asked, looking happy yet slightly saddened by the thought of Rita's new butler taking up more of her time. "Nope." "Oh, on your way out, would you mind calling Yen for me?" Rita requested. "The butler, of course, miss," Jana replied calmly, her sadness hidden within. Miss Verta seems to have taken a strong liking to the new butler indeed, but now, thanks to him, I barely get to see her. "Miss, I thought that was your favorite," Jana mused inwardly as she left to fetch Yen. "It's been a long time since I've been able to rest like this. I feel so calm," Rita muttered to herself, adjusting herself in the chair as she prepared to relax. Soon after, Yosha knocked on the door. Rita welcomed Yosha into the room and gestured for him to come closer. Yosha, looking slightly puzzled, approached her as she offered him chocolates. "Would you like some?" Rita asked, referring to the Tatum-style date palm chocolates she was enjoying. "It's my first time trying them, and they're quite delicious," she tells him. Yosha, now calmer, sat down and accepted the offer. Rita noticed he seemed a bit parched and promptly poured him a cup of tea. As Yosha settled, Rita sat up, indicating her interest. "What is it you want?" Yosha asked calmly. "I'm simply curious about your past, and since it's raining and I won't be going out, I'd like to hear your story," Rita explained. If our plan is successful, we'll be restoring you to Tatum. At the very least, I should understand your relationship with the place. We aren't undertaking this operation to return you as a wanted man, after all. So, tell me. I've shared all my secrets with you, Rita added calmly. Yosha visibly relaxed and sighed before beginning his tale. As I told you when we first met, my name means second flame born from the desert's most brilliant sands. It means that I'm the Sultan's second child, he started, his expression serious as he opened up to Rita. Rita was visibly shocked by Yosha's revelation. What? So this entire time I've been having a prince of Tatum iron my delicates? She exclaimed incredulously. Yosha corrected her with a serious look. Correction, I have never ironed your delicates. And strictly speaking, I was never a prince. I was a princess. A princess? Rita repeated, her hand over her mouth in surprise. Come to think of it, that poster. Her mind raced back to her days working at the tavern in her true body. She vividly remembered tearing down Yosha's wanted poster from the wall and using it to wipe her face. But why does it say he's a woman? She had wondered when she read it then. Yen, you are a woman? Rita asked Yosha softly, trying to process the information. No, of course not, Yosha quickly clarified before beginning her tale. The Sultan of Tatum had one wife and several concubines. My mother was a concubine with little power. So, I had no choice but to grow up hiding my true gender. So that's why the imposter described him as a woman. I thought an official had mistranslated, Rita thought aloud, still trying to comprehend everything she had just heard. Yosha's story unfolded with a mix of sorrow and anger. Even though my mother and I hid the truth, the Sultan's wife Niger threatened to kill us almost daily, she recounted to Rita. Sultan Ganihi, her father, was a classic desert warrior. He had little interest in his daughter, but he was a good companion to my mother. While the Sultan favored his wife the most, he also showed some affection to my mother. Yosha paused, her anger palpable. Yet, it would have been better to receive no favor at all. Receiving even the lukewarm affections of a powerful man is a double-edged sword. She continued with a grim expression. The envious wife, Niger, ultimately murdered my mother in a fit of jealousy. In revenge, I used sorcery illegally and killed her. The Sultan was furious. How could a mere girl kill his wife? Eventually, I escaped his bounty hunters and came to Osland. I see, Rita responded, absorbing the weight of Yosha's revelations. But Yen, how long have you been capable of sorcery? Were you born with these abilities? She asked, her curiosity evident. Yes, Yosha explained, her hands folded thoughtfully. Direct descendants of the Sultan's line occasionally display natural abilities. However, these powers are usually limited, enough to light a cigar or cause small misfortunes upon someone they dislike. Rita found it perplexing. Strange, but your magic is strong enough to kill a person? She asked Yosha, contemplating the extent of her abilities. That is because I was born extraordinary, Yosha explained simply. Yes. It must be nice to be born powerful, Rita concluded, reflecting on the implications of innate abilities. Changing the subject, Rita immediately inquired about Ian, her butler who had been sent on official duties to Tatum. Judging from the condition of the cursed glass, it doesn't seem like he's wandered off the path. Most likely, he will reach Tatum within this week. Letters need time to be transported. We must be patient, Yosha reassured her. Rita relaxed a bit and laid down on the sofa, letting out a sigh. In the event the issue with my parents is still unresolved by the time you are to return to Tatum, you must promise to help me, won't you? Rita asked earnestly. We shall see, Yosha replied, her tone non-committal. The next day at the administrative division, Rita made a striking entrance. As she walked into the office, dressed in a slightly revealing outfit that deviated from the usual uniform, murmurs and stares followed her. Good morning, she greeted everyone with a smile. A Syrian, greeting her with a tense look, spoke up first. Miss Verta. Heather Maximilian slammed her desk in anger and stood up abruptly. Miss Verta, are you in your right mind? Did you forget our last conversation? Her tone was sharp and accusing. This is a professional workplace. How dare you dress so indecently? Do you believe yourself so special that you are somehow above the dress code? Rita calmly surveyed the room, noticing Nathan Hector was absent from his desk. It appears Nathan isn't here. Time to deliver my response, she thought to herself. Officer Heather, I have never violated the dress code. I reviewed the policy, which allows attire as long as it doesn't excessively expose bare skin, Rita countered evenly. Do you take me for a fool? What do you call this, then? Heather pointed angrily at Rita's dress. Would you claim these are not skin, but bones? She asked Rita. It's lace, officer. I'm not directly exposing skin directly, Rita explained calmly, maintaining her composure. Heather clenched her fists in frustration. What game are you playing? Do you find it laughable to be told to follow dress code? Is this palace some sort of joke to you? Heather barked angrily. Please, Officer Heather, see for yourself, Rita said with a smile, offering the documents she held in her hand. Heather grabbed them, reading the heading which shocked her, Certificate of Confirmation regarding adherence to workplace dress standards, petitioned by Verta Alberhart. Processed by the Ministry of Justice. Approved by Royal Justice Van Brandt. Heather Maximilian stared at the document in disbelief, her expression filled with fear. Rita wore a faint smile, knowing her plan had struck the mark. What Heather didn't know was that an hour earlier, Rita had orchestrated this move. In Prince Van Brandt's office, he pondered over Rita's words. She had mentioned heading to work at the administrative division. His thoughts wandered back to their last encounter at the Alberhart Manor, recalling her concern and their close proximity. He blushed, remembering her request to call her Ver. Of course, that woman isn't here out of boredom. I'm aware she only volunteered to work for the administrative division in order to uncover Marquis Carter's weaknesses, he thought, shaking his head slightly. Prince Van Brandt wasn't going to get in her way. Suddenly, a knock came from his door. Your Highness, may I come in? Rita asked as she knocked. They soon sat facing each other. Your Highness, could I trouble you for a certificate that affirms I abide by the dress code? Rita said with a smile. Issuing a certificate is not a difficult task. However, may I inquire as to the reason you are in need of one, Lady Verta? He asked calmly. Please call me Ver, as I believe I asked you before, Rita replied, walking closer to where he was seated. My superior has been causing a ruckus, insisting that the way I dress violates workplace standards. I fear she might try to chase me out of the administrative division before long, she explained calmly. Regarding the dress code, that shouldn't be an issue, and according to palace bylaws, an officer cannot dismiss an assistant at their own discretion. So you have nothing to fear, Prince Brandt informed her. Is that so? Still, I'm curious, how much does the dress code allow exactly? Rita said gently, unbuttoning her dress. For example, if I were to do this. Is this much allowed? She asked Prince Brandt. He was taken aback, unable to utter a word, his face flushing as he watched her. Rita giggled slightly, pleased with herself. She exposed a bit more cleavage, leaning towards him. How about this much? Is this still acceptable? She questioned him. Prince Van Brandt blushed instantly, his face turning red. He quickly sprang up from his seat, stunning Rita. Please do not make such inappropriate jests. A noblewoman such as yourself should not be so carelessly flirting with a man, he told her, despite his unease. Rita leaned forward, causing him to press against a bookshelf, her hands preventing him from moving. He stared at her, still flushed with embarrassment. And if it is not a jest? She asked him. Prince Van Brandt couldn't help but steal another glance at her cleavage. He placed his hand against his head, visibly conflicted. Rita kept watching him keenly, intrigued by his inner struggle. To watch such an austere man be so torn in the face of temptation. This couldn't possibly be any sexier, she thought inwardly, observing his reaction. Prince Brandt gently took her hand and turned her against the bookshelf. Rita was stunned, unsure how to react. He looked at her with soft eyes. Is he going to kiss me? Rita wondered as Prince Brandt leaned closer. Instead, he gently bumped his head against hers, his eyes closed, still blushing. Miss Verta, tempting a man's limits is a dreadful pastime, he whispered to her despite his vulnerable state, before calmly walking away. Rita watched him go. Just as well. A man like him would have followed any kiss with a marriage proposal purely out of a sense of duty, she thought, acknowledging the complications it would bring to her plans to seduce Nathan Hector. But still, it'd be nice to kiss him just once, she mused to herself. Your Honor, will you still issue a certificate for me? Rita asked, quickening her pace to catch up with Prince Brant. For good measure, I went and inquired at the Ministry of Justice this morning. I wanted to be absolutely clear on the matter to avoid any further misunderstandings. Moved by my diligent efforts to uphold workplace standards, Royal Justice Prince Van Brandt signed the documents himself, Rita said, smiling confidently. Not only had she taken the matter to the Ministry of Justice, but the Royal Justice himself had approved her certificate. Is she insane? Heather thought angrily. She gripped the document tightly, her frustration evident. I shall continue to observe you. I expect you to behave yourself. Am I clear? She demanded, before turning and walking away from Rita. Rita remained composed, watching Heather leave. She smiled to herself. Will you still be so confident when your jewelry shop has been run into the ground? Let's just wait and see, Heather Maximilian, Rita thought to herself, a hint of malice in her thoughts as she contemplated the future. Everyone watched Rita in shock, feeling tense and somewhat sympathetic towards her situation. I'm sorry for causing a disturbance, she apologized as she walked gently towards her desk. At this rate, she might quit because of Heather. Such a beautiful and hard-working woman, how terrible, muttered one officer. She dresses beautifully. Heather is just nitpicking for no reason, whispered another. Rita wore a grin of satisfaction as she overheard their side conversations. A few days later, Nathan Hector returned from an assignment to the administrative division. As he passed a corridor, he heard Heather's voice. Who told you to leave your post? Although you might look down on me, there are rules and responsibilities, Heather Maximilian rebuked someone sternly. That voice sounds like Heather's, Nathan Hector thought to himself as he quickly hid near the hallway, eavesdropping on their conversation. Why is she causing a scene in someone else's hallway? Nathan wondered as he listened closely to Heather's words. What on earth was the Amber family thinking when they recommended you? Heather's voice cut through the corridor, causing Nathan to flinch. He discreetly peered around the corner, trying to discern who Heather was addressing. Someone hired on the Amber family's recommendation? Nathan thought, puzzled. His eyes settled on Rita standing still, her demeanor reflecting sadness. Miss Verta? Nathan nearly uttered aloud, surprised to realize she was the subject of Heather Maximilian's criticism. As he looked at the rosary hanging from his neck, a gift from Rosalie Amber, memories flashed back. My dear friend gave it to me. She knew I was worried about you, Rosalie had explained, showing Nathan Rita's thoughtful gift. Nathan turned away, feigning indifference, though his mind raced with new questions and concerns. She said it's a charm that gives you good health and luck in all your endeavors, Rosalie told him with a smile. Nathan glanced at her with a cool expression before taking the rosary. It's not bad, he told her, considering the gift. She said it was a gift from a dear friend. It seems that friend is Miss Verta, Nathan reasoned quietly, still observing Rita. Be careful in the future, understand? Heather said sharply to Rita. Yes, my sincere apologies, officer, Rita replied, keeping her head slightly bowed. The same constant nagging, she isn't like this to anyone else. Why me? Rita thought inwardly, her frustration barely contained. Heather scrutinized Rita closely, aware of the tension. She has a way of rubbing a person the wrong way. Just like that Felicia woman, Heather muttered. Unbeknownst to others, Heather harbored a deep grudge against Felicia Carter. She had once admired Marquis Amber, Felicia Carter's husband. Marquis Amber, he's so handsome, Heather thought to herself, feeling a flush of admiration as she watched him from a distance. Suddenly, Heather noticed Marquis Amber waiting with his hand outstretched, and a lady approached him and placed her hand in his. It was Felicia Carter. Felicia Carter. Heather seethed inwardly, clenching her teeth in anger. If only it weren't for their arranged marriage, I never would have had to marry my utter loser of a husband, Heather fumed, her gaze fixed at Rita. You can blame Felicia for recommending the likes of you, Heather thought bitterly, her resentment palpable. Despite her anger, Heather continued her scolding. Lately, your behavior has been intolerable. And your husband's jewelry shop must not be doing well. It seems Lewis is succeeding in his sabotage, Rita thought smugly, pleased with her plans unfolding. As a new hire, you should dress more decently and fix that attitude. Show some respect to your superiors, Heather rebuked Rita rudely. Yes, keep berating me. It only makes me appear even more pitiful, Rita thought to herself, feigning sadness at Heather's remarks. In the midst of this, Rita caught sight of Nathan Hector discreetly eavesdropping on their conversation. Rita couldn't help but smile inwardly. As always, if something is meant to work out, it will. Watch closely, Nathan, she thought to herself, her gaze fixed in his direction as she quickly devised a plan. Officer, I'm so sorry my incompetence is making things so difficult for you. I will try harder in the future. I only ask for your generous understanding, Rita said with feigned sadness, ensuring her voice carried so Nathan could hear. She knew he was observing the situation closely. Heather nodded sternly. Do better, Miss Verta. I'll be paying close attention tomorrow as well, she stated before walking away, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. Nathan emerged from his hiding spot, pretending not to have overheard the conversation as Heather passed by. Hello, he said, greeting Rita. Officer Nathan, Rita greeted him warmly. You must be returning from an errand. I'm sure you must be tired. Please rest? She offered with a smile, despite having just been harassed and insulted moments ago. Nathan was taken aback. How could she be so cheery after such an encounter? He wondered, placing a comforting hand on Rita's shoulder. It's always difficult in the beginning. You are doing well, Miss Verta, he reassured her, trying to lift her spirits. Rita remained silent, watching him quietly. Sure, it was the performance of a lifetime, but it didn't really merit this much of a reaction, she thought to herself, pleased with the success of her plan. I'm comforting her. That's not like me, Nathan Hector thought, retracting his hand. But before he could pull away completely, Rita grabbed it with both of hers. Your words give me so much strength, Officer Nathan, Rita said with a smile, leaving him perplexed. He recalled that she had said something similar during their last encounter, when she had mentioned her ruined shoe and umbrella. He remembered her exact words of thanks from that day. Ah, that reminds me. I have yet to return your raincoat. Shall we have some tea together? Rita proposed, blushing as she held his hand affectionately. I'm sorry, but I am an engaged man, Nathan said softly. How about tomorrow at 4 o'clock, in the break room? Tea time with a colleague at the workplace is hardly inappropriate, Nathan thought, observing her expression. Very well. I have a short break tomorrow afternoon before I must attend to matters outside the palace, he said, retrieving his hand. Yes, Rita agreed softly, as he walked past her, ending their meeting. Rita smiled as she watched him leave. She knew that the lunch break was from 2:30 to 3 o'clock, so no one would be in the break room at 4 o'clock. She wore a smirk, thinking, seems the goddess indeed blesses the hands of hard-working wicked women after all, feeling pleased with herself. The next day, Nathan Hector sat in the break room, waiting patiently for Rita. He checked his watch. It was past 4 o'clock. She's late, he said to himself. Meanwhile, in the administrative division building, Rita was carefully applying her makeup. If I arrive exactly on time, I might come off as desperate, she thought, adjusting her look in the mirror. We only have 30 minutes. If I'm late, you'll likely suspect me of having illicit intentions and feel at ease, she said to herself as she dusted her neck and applied her makeup. After a final check, she deemed her preparation perfect. Rita stepped into the break room, causing Nathan Hector to blush at the sight of her. Apologies, I was given a last-minute request, she said, with a pitiful look that added a touch of allure, while holding Nathan's raincoat. Nathan couldn't help but stare, his face flushed as his eyes lingered on her exposed neck. Everything is according to plan, Rita thought with satisfaction, happy that her strategy was working. You're not angry with me, are you? She asked calmly, standing opposite him. No, not at all, Nathan replied, trying to stay composed. Rita placed the neatly folded raincoat on the table. I'm very grateful for the other day. If it weren't for you, I would have simply cried my eyes out on the streets, she said. It was no problem, but may I ask what business you had there? A back alley like that is no place for a noble lady such as yourself, Nathan replied. Well, a personal question, Rita thought, pleased that he was showing interest. If I tell you, you'll probably think of me as pathetic, she said, sounding a bit embarrassed. Not at all, please, Nathan encouraged her. Rita took a moment before replying, I'm telling you this because I trust you. I was seeking out a fortune teller. I had commissioned a talisman, you see, she explained gently. From a fortune teller? Nathan asked, his interest piqued. The rosary on your wrist. Rosalie gave it to you, didn't she? She asked him. Yes, she did. It's supposed to protect me and bring good luck, Nathan said, examining the charm on his wrist. Rita thought to herself, she lied to her fiancé. Was she afraid he would reject her if he knew the truth about the love charm? What a fool. She fanned her neck with her hand, noticing Nathan's increasing flush. Nathan, observing her, gulped nervously. Rita concluded, he isn't even worth the effort. Rose was so worried about you that she specially ordered it, Rita said. What sort of talisman were you seeking that day? Nathan asked. Rita smiled, noting his interest in fortune tellers. Well, about that, she said, fidgeting with her fingers. It's really nothing, so I'm embarrassed to say. It's all right, please speak, Nathan urged her calmly. Rita closed her eyes tightly. I want to find love, she said, almost shouting, feeling embarrassed and startling Nathan. I hoped the talisman would help, she tells him. Nathan watched her, looking tense and unsure. Love? Nathan asked, sounding shocked. I was once engaged, but things went awry between my fiancé and me. We even went to trial. Perhaps you've heard? Rita asked, her expression turning sad. I believe so, but I'm afraid I have difficulty recalling the details, Nathan replied honestly. So he doesn't know. Well, it makes sense. Before he was engaged to Rosalie, he was just a baron from the border area, Rita thought. I truly believed I would marry my fiancé, but in the end I ended up all alone, she said, sounding sorrowful. I for one, believe that connections between people are all designed by fate. So, I believe your destined one is out there, Miss Verta, Nathan said warmly. Rita fixed her gaze on him. How beautiful. It's the most heartwarming encouragement I've ever received, she said, wiping a tear from her eye, causing Nathan to flush. He coughed slightly, trying to hide his redness. Rosalie seems so happy. I hope I too will soon meet a dashing fiancé and fall in love just like Rosalie, Rita said softly. Nathan, looking red and quiet, observed her with a puzzled expression. Rita, noticing his reaction, blushed and placed her hand over her mouth. My mistake. Please forget what I just said. Thank you for your time, Officer Nathan, and for the raincoat, farewell, she said, quickly rising from her seat and hurrying out. Nathan watched her go, his face flushed, his feelings deepening. He sprang from his seat. Wait, he called, causing Rita to pause. In an instant, Hector dashed toward her and hugged her from behind, startling Rita. Officer Nathan, we can't, she said, tensing up. But Nathan couldn't help himself. Her plea went unheard. He opened his mouth to bite her neck. Suddenly, he jolted back to reality, realizing it had all been in his imagination. Sweat coated his face as he looked around, finding Rita had vanished. What was that? He murmured, holding his face in confusion. He let his hands drop, remembering her kind words. Being engaged, I'm unable to get any closer to her. But I suppose we can coexist as colleagues, he thought, still disoriented by the vivid trance. Meanwhile, outside the administrative division, Rita walked gently, seeking some fresh air. Work is such a drag. My mood improves just by stepping outside. It'd be perfect if I ran into Nathan, she thought. Just then, Julie happened to pass by and spotted Rita. Beth, Julie called out. That voice, Rita thought, turning to see who it was. Julie, it's been a while, she said excitedly upon seeing her. How come we never see each other even though we both work at the palace? Is the administrative division quite busy these days? Julie asked, stepping closer. Yes, a bit, Rita replied. I heard you've become close with Rosalie Amber lately. Is that true? Julie asked, sounding slightly annoyed. We volunteered at the same facility together, Rita responded, sounding disinterested. Julie grabbed Rita's hand and squeezed it tightly. Ver, she exclaimed, come with me to a birthday party this week. Be my companion. Is it Julie's birthday? She'll likely make a fuss if she realizes I don't know when her birthday is, Rita thought, feeling tense. A birthday party? She asked, sounding surprised. You don't know? It's my brother's birthday. I thought the two of you were friends, Julie said, looking surprised. Ah, Sir Blaine? I suppose I should go. After all, I owe Blaine quite a lot, Rita thought. Of course I'll go. Thank you for inviting me, she said, startling Julie. Wonderful. I knew I could count on you, Ver. I'll see you this weekend, Julie said excitedly. A few days later, in the Shade Manor, Blaine Shade sat in his parlor reading a book. Someone patted his shoulder, drawing his attention. Happy birthday, the person said with enthusiasm. I thought you weren't coming, Blaine said, closing his book. The women at the treasury were all begging me again this year to bring them as my +1 to your party, the man said. Still, it seems you took care of it, seeing as you're alone. Well done, Blaine said, dropping his book on the table. Ah, where is your sister? Is she here? He inquired, glancing around for Julie. No, she went out to greet someone, the man replied. Just as well, last time, I made one comment about a pretty lady and she followed me around for 30 minutes, telling me off. To be honest, she frightens me, he added, visibly shaking at the thought of Julie. You go first. I'll join you in a minute, Blaine said, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. They started walking towards the door. As they approached, the man caught sight of people coming up behind them. Lord. Madame. I trust you've been well, the man said with a smile, turning his gaze. Blaine turned to see his parents descending the stairs. He was tensed. Father, mother, he exclaimed. Chills ran down Blaine's spine as he saw his parents. He barely noticed his friend's hand on his shoulder. Time must pass backwards for you both. Next time I greet you, I swear we will be the same age, his friend said, laughing as he complimented Blaine's parents on their youthful appearance. Autumn. It's been too long, his mother said as they descended the stairs gently. Happy birthday, son. We left you a present in the back garden, she added with a faint smile. Thank you, mother, Blaine said with a slight bow, though his expression remained somber. You should go greet your guests. I will fetch the gifts, Autumn said, excusing himself and walking away. Blaine's parents smiled at him as he paused to chat briefly. Blaine stood there, watching them. They are good people after all, he thought sadly. They buy a birthday gift every year for a son they have no affection for. In the garden outside the manor, Rita walked through the tables set for the birthday celebration. Strange. This garden could have been filled solely with unmarried girls hungry for Blaine's hand in marriage, she thought, observing the setup. It's simpler than I expected, she said to Julie, who stood beside her. My brother isn't one for large parties. Anyway, I'm going to change clothes. Wait here, Julie said, taking Rita's hand and pointing to a reserved table. All right, Rita said calmly, following Julie. I suppose she's afraid of losing her only friend to Rosalie Amber, she thought inwardly. Take your time, she told Julie as she hurried off to change her dress. Rita sat down at their reserved table, savoring the delicious aroma of the arranged food. She quickly scanned the meals and thought, I'm glad I came. Soon, Blaine Shade strolled through the garden, his gaze fixed ahead. They really went all out for this birthday, Rita noted. When Blaine noticed her, he approached with a smile. Verta. What a lovely surprise. I didn't expect to see you here, he said, taking her hand and planting a kiss on it. You failed to extend an invitation, yet now you speak such sweet words, Rita said, pulling her hand back in mild annoyance. My apologies. I didn't invite you, fearing it might encroach on your busy schedule. Next year, I'll make sure to invite you to every function without fail. I look forward to your attendance, Blaine said with a smile. So he's suggesting I should focus on the Nathan business. Such a sharp man, Rita thought, giving him a cold look. Thank you for coming to wish me a happy birthday, Lady Verta. Before we dine, would you like to take a walk with me? Blaine asked politely. Very well, I have a gift for you as well, Rita replied with a smile. She handed him a signed deed. Here is my gift to you. Blaine was stunned. This is a deed, isn't it? He asked, reading it with a look of surprise. If I want to continue receiving his help, I should at least invest this much. It isn't my wealth to begin with, Rita thought, watching his reaction. It's not much. Once you sign, our caretaker will handle the rest, Rita said. Blaine laughed lightly, which puzzled Rita. His excitement was evident. He likes it that much, she thought, her hands folded as she observed him. Verta, you always exceed my expectations. A love letter would have been too cliché, Blaine said, leaning forward to kiss her cheek. Rita wore a smirk. Give me a handsome man and a building, and I get a kiss in return. Not bad, she thought. Are you close to achieving your goal? Blaine asked. I'm about halfway there, Rita replied. Slower than I thought. Ordinarily, all you would have to do is smile and they would fall for you straight away, Blaine said with a chuckle. Rita stood still, lost in thought. Nathan Hector. He's holding out quite well for a penniless man, she mused, walking gently as she pondered over him. She wasn't paying attention to where she was going when Blaine Shade called out, Verta, watch out. Rita's leg got caught, causing her to stumble and fall onto the grass. Verta, are you all right? Blaine asked, rushing to her side and kneeling down with a look of concern. I gave him such a wonderful gift, and then went and made a complete fool of myself, Rita thought, her cheeks reddening with embarrassment. It appears you aren't hurt. Thank God you fell into some bushes, Blaine said, helping her back up. Now stand up, clumsy miss, he said with a smile, offering his hand. Rita glared at him, grabbing his hand and pulling him down to her as she stayed on the ground. I feel a bit better now, she said with a smile. How are you always so wicked? Blaine asked, returning her smile. That would be a trade secret, Rita said, placing her finger against his lips. May I kiss you? Blaine asked politely, his face turning red. Rita paused for a moment, then drew herself closer, placing her hand on his shoulder. She gave him a calm look before leaning in and kissing him. Blaine held her neck, momentarily pausing the kiss. Verta, you are so beautiful, he said softly. Rita was flushed, her eyes shining brightly. As she leaned forward for a second kiss, a loud scream pierced the air. Blaine froze, his face turning tense. He looked up to see his mother standing there, her hands against her mouth and a cold expression on her face. Mother? Blaine called out in shock. Rita turned her attention to Blaine's mother. Damn, it's over. She'll probably slap me for having the nerve to seduce her son, Rita thought, her expression tense. Blaine's mother approached them quickly, her face full of concern. Rita and Blaine watched, both looking apprehensive. To Rita's surprise, Blaine's mother pushed Blaine away angrily. Blaine looked perplexed as his mother then turned to Rita. Miss, are you all right? Are you injured? She asked, inspecting Rita's hand for any harm. Blaine stood silently, dusting himself off. Any normal parent would check on their son first, Rita thought, confused by the mother's reaction. What a relief, Blaine's mother said, breathing a sigh of relief as she wobbled slightly while standing up. Mother, Blaine said, trying to assist her. She gritted her teeth in anger and pulled his arm away. She is the daughter of another noble family. What were you thinking? She scolded, her anger evident. Blaine's expression turned sad. Mother, he said calmly, restraining his trembling hand. It seems my mother is feeling unwell. I'll escort her back to her room, Lady Verta. My apologies if you would mind returning to our table first, Blaine said, excusing himself. Not at all, Rita replied, her expression a mix of confusion and politeness. It was an honor to meet you, Lady Shade, she said with a bow before walking away, leaving mother and son alone. Back at the party, Rita sat down and began eating. Eat up, and next time, let me know before you disappear, Julie said, joining her at the table. Rita pondered. Does she even know the state her mother is in? How could she? She tried to let go of her thoughts about Blaine as she focused on her steak, cutting it carefully. But what does that have to do with me? She wondered. She continued eating quietly. There's my brother, the man of the hour, Julie announced, pointing out Blaine's entrance. Blaine Shade stepped into the tent, his mood noticeably dull. Is he still upset from earlier? Rita mused, noting his somber expression. As Blaine approached her, he leaned in slightly and said, Lady Verta, may I speak with you for a moment? His tone was polite. It would be my pleasure, Rita replied with a faint smile. Hello? I'm here too, Julie interjected, puzzled by why they needed to speak privately. Rita and Blaine then set out for a walk in the garden. As they walked side by side, Blaine remained quiet and calm. Did I see something I wasn't supposed to? Rita wondered, glancing at him. If he accuses me of witnessing something inappropriate and decides to act violently, it would make for a truly grim ending, she thought. She mentally prepared for the worst. A rock to the head would work just as well, and Prince Van Brandt would likely support a self-defense claim. Blaine suddenly spoke. So you saw. The words sent a chill down Rita's spine. I'm in trouble, she thought, bracing herself for a possible attack. It's odd for him to be so calm about it. Exactly when did you realize you were different from other people? Blaine asked suddenly. Rita looked at him, surprised. Why the sudden question? She asked, leaving Blaine momentarily speechless. He placed his hand against his face, struggling to mask his emotions. Rita watched Blaine closely, wondering, what kind of development is this? Is he crying? She thought. He uncovered his face, but remained silent. Ah well, I'm simply concerned, Rita said, turning her head away. I was perfectly happy eating my desserts. Why bring me here if you're going to be so stoic? What kind of act is this? She thought, folding her hands. My parents are good people, Blaine said as the sun began to set. I see. Good for you, Rita replied absent-mindedly. I have a questionable moral compass, but that doesn't mean I have no love for my parents, he continued, his voice tinged with sadness. Yes, Rita remarked, still sounding uninterested. In fact, when I was a child, I did everything I could to earn their affection, but it all seems meaningless now, Blaine said, his tone heavy with melancholy. Rita cast a side glance at him, uncertain of what he would say next. They don't even consider me family, Blaine revealed, his voice dropping. So that's why Lady Shade reacted the way she did earlier, Rita thought inwardly. Don't be so gloomy on your birthday, she said, trying to lighten the mood. Lady Verta, in the past, I attempted to murder Julia, Blaine confessed, revealing a dark secret known only to the Shade family. When Blaine was a child, a traumatic event unfolded on one of his birthdays that he would never forget. In the Shade's kitchen, Julia dashed in with determination. I want it, she exclaimed, pointing at Blaine's presents. You can't, that's Blaine's, Princess Helena shouted, visibly tense as she tried to intervene. Julia ignored her and lunged for the gifts. Princess Helena tried to restrain her but lost her grip on Julia's dress, causing her to fall to the floor with a cry of pain. Undeterred, Julia grabbed one of the presents, her flushed face showing her determination. Blaine stood at a distance, paralyzed with shock as he watched his sister tear into his presents. Their mother soon arrived and was taken aback by the scene. Oh my! She exclaimed, approaching the commotion with disbelief. What in the world is going on here? This is all Julie's. Julia screamed, continuing to rip through the presents, oblivious to her mother's presence. Stop it! The princess cried out, desperately trying to control Julia. Dear heavens, Julie! Their mother screamed, horrified as she watched Julia destroy more presents. Blaine stood by, silent and distressed. Princess Helena's tears flowed freely as she sniffled in distress. Princess Helena, I must sincerely apologize, Lady Shade said, trying to comfort her. She then glared at Julia with frustration. Julia Shade, you embarrass me, she scolded, her voice full of anger. Julia's rampage ceased as she feared her mother's wrath. Since that incident, Julia had been a source of shame for the Shade family. Lady Shade, still comforting Princess Helena, turned her gaze to Blaine. I'm so sorry, my child. I'll buy you new presents for all the ones your sister broke, she said, hugging him affectionately to console him. Blaine, silent and hurt, hugged his mother back, squeezing her gently in a gesture of gratitude. A few days later at the Shade Manor, Lady Shade was enjoying her tea while her children played in the parlor. A maid approached with a concerned look. My lady, the kitchen has been infested with rats. We'll need to set out rat poison for about a day. Would that be all right? The maid asked. Lady Shade, noting the probable cause was Julia's mess from Blaine's birthday, sighed. Very well, just ensure none of the food or ingredients come into contact with the poison, she instructed. Julia ran up to her mother, tugging at her dress with tears in her eyes. "Mother, I'm sorry. Please give me a treat," she pleaded. "The person you should be apologizing to is your brother, not me. Until you do so, you will have no treats nor forgiveness," Lady Shade said firmly, pulling her skirt away from Julia's grasp. Julia sobbed louder, drawing Blaine's attention. He watched her with a smirk, thinking, Mother no longer loves Julia. She wouldn't be sad if Julia disappeared. I can't get rid of her myself because I know murder is a crime. At that moment, Princess Helena dashed into the parlor with a joyful exclamation. "Blaine, I'm here." As she approached, she slipped and fell onto one of Blaine's toys, injuring her hand. "Ah, it hurts," she cried out, tears streaming down her face. "It hurts, Mommy." "Brother," she wailed. "Princess Helena." Lady Shade called out in shock as she rushed to the princess's side. "Someone call the physician at once." Lady Shade cried out in distress. Meanwhile, Blaine decided to act on his dark thoughts, manipulating events without directly implicating himself. A few days later, Princess Helena returned to the Shade Manor. Spotting Blaine by the window, she called out with excitement. "Blaine." He turned and smiled. "Princess Helena, hello. Blaine, you're dressed for an outing. Are you going somewhere?" she asked as she approached him. "Yes, I've been waiting for you. Shall we go together?" Blaine asked. "With me?" she asked, her eyes widening with excitement. Blaine leaned in and whispered, "Would you like to go on a secret adventure with me today? Just the two of us. No one else will know." Helena nodded eagerly. "Yes. So, where are we going?" she asked. "Have you ever heard of the tree that grows sweets?" Blaine asked with a grin. "A tree that grows sweets?" Helena exclaimed, her excitement evident. Blaine placed a finger against her lips. "Sure, it's a secret I'm sharing with you, Your Highness," he said with a smile. Blaine guided Princess Helena through their garden. "Look over there, Princess," he said, pointing to a tree. Princess Helena's eyes widened in amazement as she saw the tree seemingly adorned with sweets. "Oh my stars, it really does grow sweets," she exclaimed, rushing to the tree. She picked a cookie and took a bite. "A butter cookie. There's no doubt about it," she said, spinning slightly as the taste took her by surprise. "It's a magic tree," Princess Helena exclaimed, her face glowing with happiness. Blaine, with a reserved expression, thought to himself, what an idiot. The princess didn't realize the cookie was just a leaf from the tree. She sniffed it eagerly. "To think you found a real magic tree, Blaine. You're incredible," Princess Helena said, beaming with excitement. "I was lucky," he tells her. Blaine remained calm, fully aware of the tree's true nature. Hidden in a secluded part of the family garden, it was an Indari tree known for its potent hallucinations. Blaine stepped closer to the tree, pretending to pick another cookie while holding a small item in his fist. "Princess Helena, could you take this to my sister?" he asked, placing the item in her hand. "Poor thing. She's been banned from sweets after the mistake she made on my birthday." "Of course, I'll take it to her," Princess Helena said eagerly, nodding. Blaine leaned in slightly. "If the adults find out about this tree, its magic will fade and it will wither. So let's keep this our little secret," he added. "I swear to tell no one," Princess Helena assured, causing Blaine to smile. He had orchestrated a drastic plan. Julia would consume the treat laced with rat poison, and Princess Helena would be blamed. Blaine had already destroyed the real cookies he had hung on the Indari tree, carefully hiding all traces of evidence. If Helena spoke about the tree that grew sweets, there would be no proof, and people would think she had merely hallucinated under the tree's influence. But things didn't go as planned. Blaine's father approached him, interrupting his reading. "Blaine, let's talk inside," he said, causing Blaine to look up with concern. "Yes, father," Blaine replied calmly. He reached for his father's hand, but his father clenched his fist and looked away, his face a picture of shame. "Let's go inside," he said quietly, before turning and walking away with Blaine following closely behind. Blaine trembled with unease, suspecting something had gone wrong. Inside Julia's room, she lay in bed clearly ill, with their mother anxiously beside her. Julia's face was pale, and she was sweating profusely. Blaine's heart raced as he saw the scene. What happened to Princess Helena, he thought. His mother, noticing him, sprang from the bed and rushed to him, hugging him tightly with tears in her eyes. "Blaine, my baby," she cried, her voice breaking with sadness as she clung to him. Blaine glanced at his sister. Seeing the poisoned cookie on the floor sent chills down his body, his heart beating fast. "What have I done?" he thought, struggling to make sense of the situation. "Child, did you ask Princess Helena to give Julia that sweet?" his mother asked, her voice trembling with fear. "Pardon?" "No, of course not," Blaine replied, trying to sound as innocent as possible. "Please, don't lie to your mother. Julia told us of the magic tree. I beg you, please do not lie to your own mother," she begged, tears streaming down her face. Foolish Helena. She must have revealed everything, Blaine thought as he observed his mother. Princess Helena did seem unwell today. I fear she might have eaten something strange. That might explain the confusion, Blaine suggested. His mother, still distressed, seemed to consider calling for a physician out of concern for the princess. Blaine recalled Helena's smile earlier that day as she believed his fabricated story about the tree. Once traces of the Indari are found in Helena, they'll have no choice but to believe me, he thought. Such an action could turn into a diplomatic nightmare. Why would I give the princess such a dangerous sweet? Blaine said aloud, causing his parents to flinch in shock. His mother gasped nervously and pulled away from him, trembling. How did you know the sweet was dangerous? His father asked, his voice suddenly sharp. Blaine gasped in shock. If you truly had nothing to do with this incident, you wouldn't even be aware there was a sweet, his mother said, trembling with shock. You spoke of it earlier, mother. You said Princess Helena's sweet was laced with rat poison, Blaine said, his voice tense. His mother looked at him, her eyes filling with tears. She sobbed quietly. His father, trying to calm her, said, Your mother only asked if you had given Helena a sweet. She never mentioned what it contained. Blaine watched them, fear evident in his expression. His father's gaze was cold. So you tried to feed your sister a snack laced with rat poison, Blaine. Blaine felt a chill run down his spine. His mother wobbled and fainted, collapsing to the floor. Darling. His father cried out, holding her. Mother. Blaine stuttered, panic rising as he saw his mother pass out. His father held her tightly. If it hadn't been for the strange taste and smell, and your sister spitting the sweet out, she might have died. I have heard enough. Leave us alone, Blaine Shade, his father said, his voice filled with anger. Blaine stepped out of the room, closing the door behind him. He glanced back at his parents, knowing he had betrayed their trust. Despite their kindness, they couldn't bring themselves to completely disown him. It's impossible to ignore what happened, Blaine told Rita. So ultimately, you failed to kill Julia. Did you kill Princess Helena? She asked. That's your first question? Blaine responded, surprised. After everything that happened, the princess never visited the Shade estate again. Actually, she went missing during her return to her own country. I don't even know if she's alive, he tells her. Ah, I see, Rita said, her tone calm. A short silence followed. Doesn't it bother you? Blaine asked. Why would it? I don't even know what the princess looks like. Should I cry? Rita replied, almost dismissively. No, I mean what I did as a boy, Blaine clarified. Truthfully, I'm a bit disappointed, Rita said calmly. Of course, Blaine said, his fists clenched in shame. You may have only been 7 years old, but how careless. I expected better from you. Rita sighed, looking perplexed. What do you mean? Blaine asked, unsure of her comment. You forgot to do the preliminary work on your parents, didn't you? You should have charmed them from the start by playing the innocent child. Even if they suspected you, they would have believed your words. If it had been me, I would have just shoved her off the balcony, Rita said with a smirk. Blaine looked at her, confused, and then laughed, unsure of how to react. My word, Count Alberhart. How does a woman like you exist in this world? Blaine said, hugging her tightly. Rita looked confused. You surprise me every time. Let go, you're suffocating me, she protested calmly. I'm afraid I've just fallen for you, Blaine said, holding her arms. You're not confessing your love for me, are you? She asked, pushing him away. "If I were, would you have me?" he asked, laughing. Rita observed Blaine closely, noting his flushed cheeks. "Honestly, I don't hate the idea. Even if he is a strange man confessing his feelings to me, despite my true nature," she thought. "But it's not the right time. You have your mission, remember?" Blaine said. Rita's mind drifted to her last meeting with Nathan Hector, who had spoken about connections being designed by fate and mentioned that her destined one was out there. "You impressed me," Blaine shade. "Thanks to you, I momentarily forgot about Nathan," she thought. "Indeed. Not now," she told Blaine. "If I may, I'd like to lend a hand," Blaine said. "You would help me?" Rita asked, sounding shocked as she glanced at him. "It's common knowledge that nothing fans the flames of romance like a sudden love rival," he said, playfully touching her hair. "In return, when all this is over, you must give me an answer to my confession," he tells her. "I shall think about it. Let's begin tomorrow," she told him with a smile. A few days later, in the administrative building, Rita walked gently down the hallway, clutching some documents. She saw Nathan Hector approaching and knew it was time to set her plan in motion. Deliberately, she let the papers slip from her grasp, letting them fall to the ground. She cried out, drawing Nathan's attention. "Are you all right?" Nathan asked, rushing to help as she bent to pick up the documents. "Oh my, Officer Nathan," she said, smiling at him. As he assisted her, memories from their last encounter surfaced in his mind. He recalled Rita mentioning her hope to meet a dashing fiancé and fall in love like Rosalie. He blushed at the memory. "I am indebted to you once again," Rita said. "It's no problem," Nathan replied. "Actually, Officer Nathan, there's something I'd like to discuss with you," she said, her face flushed. "Discuss with me?" Nathan Hector asked, sounding confused. Rita fidgeted for a moment before slipping out a folded piece of paper. "I shall wait for you," she said, her face still flushed as she handed it to him before walking away. Nathan stood still, tense, watching her leave. "Does Miss Verta perhaps have feelings for me?" he wondered aloud. He gently opened the paper, revealing the message. 5 o'clock at the gazebo within the palace's rear gardens. Count Alberhart. Nathan's face flushed as he read the note. At the appointed time, Nathan arrived early, properly dressed. As he walked toward the rear gardens, he was lost in thought. "If Miss Verta does have feelings for me," he mused, recalling her last words as she handed him the note. "I am not indifferent to her. But..." His thoughts drifted to Rosalie and her kind words, and her beautiful face. "If I were to end my engagement with Marquis Carter's niece, could I still remain his associate?" He wondered, gripping the rosary in his hand. He focused on the garden ahead, pushing aside further thoughts. To ask to meet in a place like this, Nathan thought, observing the serenity of the gardens. He then heard someone shout, "Verta," and turned towards the direction of the voice. That voice, he thought, spotting the figures of two women a few meters away. "Rosalie? What is she doing here?" he wondered, looking perplexed. "Miss Verta," Nathan almost blurted out as he saw Rita facing Rosalie. Aren't we friends? How could you do this to me?" "I trusted you," Rosalie said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Nathan should be here any minute now, Rita thought, scanning the area for his arrival to ensure her plan wouldn't collapse. Suddenly, Rosalie grabbed Rita's shoulders. "I cannot have you skulking around him any longer," Rosalie pleaded, her grip firm. "Please, let him go." In the struggle, Rosalie accidentally damaged Rita's jewelry, ripping her dress in the process. "Leave her alone, Rosalie," Nathan shouted, rushing toward them. The commotion drew Rita's attention, and she remained silent, knowing her plan was in motion. Nice timing, she thought, as Nathan approached. "Nathan!" Rosalie exclaimed, seeing him draw near. Nathan grabbed Rosalie's hand firmly, breaking her hold on Rita. Rosalie looked shocked as Nathan observed Rita's bare neck, sending shivers down his spine. "What is the meaning of this?" "This isn't like you, Rosalie," he said harshly. He released Rosalie and stepped closer to Rita, covering her properly with his jacket. "Officer Nathan," Rita said, sobbing. Rosalie Amber watched in despair, tears streaming uncontrollably down her cheeks. "Nathan, what do you think you're doing? How could you do this to me?" she exclaimed in pain, examining her bruised hand from his grip. "Rose, just listen to what I have to say," Nathan begged, his voice trembling with fear. "I saw everything with my own eyes. What could you possibly have to say to me?" she asked, her eyes filled with rage. "As for this," she said angrily, taking off her rosary and throwing it on the ground, "it's absolutely useless to me now. Never show yourselves to me again," she shouted. With tears in her eyes, she dashed away. "If I lose her now, my relationship with the Carter family is as good as ruined," Nathan thought, fear gripping him. "Rosalie," he called, but she continued running. He was about to chase after her, but froze when he heard Rita crying. Turning around, Nathan saw Rita climbing up the wall, intending to jump into the lake. "Lady Verta, stop!" Nathan shouted, running towards her. He grabbed her hand, pulling her back. "It's dangerous. What kind of foolish behavior is this?" he demanded. "Please let me go," Rita pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "Come down at once," Nathan ordered, his voice growing stern. "It would be better for a shameless woman like me to die," Rita sobbed. "I dared to foster unrequited love towards the fiancé of my dear friend, and now I have been exposed." Still holding her firmly, Nathan Hector asked, "Do you love me?" His face reddened. Rita looked at him, remaining silent. "Please let me go. I wish to be free of this suffering," she pleaded, turning her gaze away. Nathan yanked her hard, causing her to fall into his arms. He hugged her tightly. "Please, please don't die," he begged. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for falling for you," Rita said, squeezing him tightly. She sobbed as she buried her face in his shoulder. Nathan was unaware that her sobs were fake. As she raised her head, a smirk formed on her lips. It worked. He's mine, she thought. Rita returned home feeling exhausted. What an incredibly tiring day. "I can't wait to wash up and go to bed," she thought, stretching as she headed for her bedroom. "Miss, I have a report for you," Yosha said, drawing her attention. "Does it have to be today? Can't it wait until tomorrow?" Rita asked. "Yes, it must be today," Yosha replied. Rita stared at Yosha for a moment, clearly tired. "But I'm exhausted," she said. "It's important," Yosha insisted. "Fine," Rita said, opening the door to her parlor. They both walked in. "So, what is it?" Rita asked as she sat down. "Have a look at this," Yosha said, pulling out a bottle containing a dark liquid. Rita looked at the bottle with curiosity. "What is this dark liquid?" she asked. "This is the bottle containing the spell that was placed on Ian and your previous butler," Yosha explained. Rita quickly recalled sending Ian to Tatham on an errand to find out about her parents. She remembered giving Yosha a lock of his hair. Shortly, Ian will start experiencing rashes that will spread across his body, followed by a cough and fever, all symptoms of a desert disease. His symptoms will improve as he gets closer to Tatham to ensure he completes his task. But if he tries to escape elsewhere, the disease will become deadly, Yosha had explained as she cast the spell that day. "Ah yes, I remember now," Rita said. Ordinarily, a few strands of hair would be suspended in a red liquid. A change like this suggests the person under the spell has died. I was wondering why there has been no news. "You don't think he betrayed me, do you?" Rita asked, her voice tinged with fear. "I doubt it. This kind of change indicates that the enchanted person was killed before the spell was fulfilled," Yosha said, placing the bottle on the table. Rita glanced at the bottle for a moment. "Still, this is concerning. We'll need to accelerate our plans. Speaking of which, could you brew a potion for me?" she asked almost immediately. "What sort of potion do you need this time?" Yosha asked. "A potion that induces deep, suicidal sadness. Is that possible?" Rita asked with a smile. "For a sorcerer as skilled as I am, no potion is impossible," Yosha assured her. "Good. While you prepare that, send a message to Blaine as well. Tell him it's almost time for him to make his appearance," Rita said excitedly as she stood up. Recalling her last meeting with Nathan Hector, Rita thought, if I disappear for a while after a confession like that, Nathan is bound to go out of his mind. "Oh, and starting tomorrow, I'm on vacation," she told Yosha. A few days later, Rita met with Nathan Hector in a pub. Despite the calm but noisy atmosphere, They sat alone. Nathan observed her with concern. She looks even more gaunt than last time. Is it because of what happened? He thought, but his thoughts were interrupted by Rita's voice. Officer Nathan, she said calmly. Please, just call me Nathan Ver, he replied. Rita glanced at him gently, noting that he had discarded Rosalie's rosary. He must have been impatient to see me, she thought. He's not wearing it. I've decided to call off the engagement with Miss Amber. You don't need to worry anymore, Nathan said, causing Rita to flinch in shock. I thought he would never let Rosalie go. He's more determined than I expected. Perhaps he thinks the Alberharts are safer than the Ambers? She pondered. Is something still weighing on you? Nathan asked, sounding concerned. Rita turned her gaze away, looking sad. Won't this become an obstacle in your personal path? She questioned calmly. I've already received approval from Officer Carter, Nathan said, drawing her attention. From Carter? Why? Rita thought, feeling tense as she tried to predict his next moves. Perhaps he intends to offer Rosalie as a candidate for Queen? Well, if it's Carter, that's more than possible, she concluded inwardly. He assured me that he would not penalize me for calling off the engagement with his niece, Nathan added. Of course, the filthy bastard will do anything as long as it serves them, Rita scoffed inwardly. So, Ver, Nathan began, now that there is nothing in our way, you and I. He was cut short by Rita. There's one thing that bothers me, she said, beginning to sniffle. Pardon? What is it? Nathan asked with concern. My friendship with Rosalie, Rita said, her voice trembling. Pardon? Nathan Hector asked, looking tense. After seeing Rosalie, I realized I care for her much more than I expected, Rita said, bowing her head into her arms as she sobbed. I'm so sorry, Nathan. We cannot be together for Rosalie. Please do not misunderstand me, she added, lifting her tear-filled face to him. I love you dearly. She turned her head away, her cheeks red. Have you heard of the legend? In the East, there's a belief that if two lovers take their last breath together, they'll be reborn as a happily married couple in their next life, she said, her voice trembling. Is that so? How beautiful, Nathan remarked, looking somewhat blank. How wonderful it would be if it were true, Rita cried out, resting herself against him as he held her to console her. Rita stayed in his arms for a while, still sobbing. If not in this life, one could still be with their beloved in the next. Verta, for you, I would end my life just like in the legend. I am prepared to go on to the next life, Nathan said. But I can't bring myself to betray Rosalie, Rita said, but she was interrupted by Nathan. Don't cry, Ver. You've done nothing wrong. This is all because I have fallen in love with you, he told her. Rita appeared stunned, her hand against her mouth as she acted surprised. Nathan, she said, hugging him. Rosalie had been devoted to him. If I care for her at all, I should let go of Verta. But I don't know if I can do that while she's so tormented, Nathan thought sadly as he held her close. As Rita continued to hug Nathan, she observed him closely. He's completely consumed by the tragedy, she thought, preparing for the next phase of her plan. Unbeknownst to Nathan Hector, Rita discreetly reached for his drink. She unlocked the jewelry in her ring, allowing a drug to fall into the glass. I think it's safe to assume this is the last time we can see each other like this. Please, allow me to offer you a parting drink, she said, disengaging from their embrace. But Nathan began to speak. Rita placed a finger against his lips, signaling him to be quiet. I want to remember this as a beautiful moment. So, Nathan, please, she said with a warm smile. She can't refuse me forever. I shouldn't come on too strong. I'll try again once the mood is more relaxed, Nathan thought inwardly before gulping down his drink. Rita smiled mischievously as she watched him. A few days later, Nathan Hector arrived at the Alberhart Manor, waiting anxiously for Rita in her parlor. It's already been a week. I must see her today. She must never know I struck a deal with Marquis Carter, he thought, recalling their recent meeting. You must marry Miss Alberhart. After calling off your engagement to Rosalie, that is the only way you will remain my subordinate, Marquis Carter had said, holding his teacup. Nathan Hector had been stunned. I had indeed thought it unfortunate when Jean died and I lost the Alberhart daughter. It doesn't matter who it is. As long as I gain a connection to the Alberhart family, proud Carter thought as he sipped his tea. At that moment, Rita entered the parlor, bringing Nathan Hector back to reality. He quickly sprang up from his chair. "Ber!" he exclaimed. "Ah, Nathan. My poor beloved," Rita said as she stepped towards him and hugged him. Nathan Hector held her close, while Rita's hands began to shake and tears fell from her eyes. "Forgive me. I love you, but my guilt towards Rosalie is so unbearable I could die," she said, her voice trembling as she placed her hand against Nathan's cheek. "No, blame me. I'm the one who abandoned Rosalie and ran to you. I cannot go on living without you," Nathan said, holding her hand as tears streamed down his face. What Nathan didn't know was that he was drugged and under Yosha's spell. She had spiked his tea before his arrival, adding more to the drink he had last week. He must be in a low enough state to be suicidal, Rita thought inwardly as she gazed into his eyes. "Nathan," she said, gently removing her hand from his cheek, "I am to marry. Today must be the last time we see each other." Her words stunned him. Chills ran down Nathan's body. "But how? Who?" he asked in shock. "My mother and father disapprove of us. They say the Hector lineage is too short and your family won't gain any more power," Rita said, sobbing. She handed Nathan a sealed letter. As he took it, his hand trembled while he read its contents. All this trembling over a forged letter. He's never even met the Alberharts, so who is he to know the difference? Rita thought inwardly, watching him with tears in her eyes. "Because I dared to desire a man like you, the goddess has punished him. So please go," she said, covering her face as she sobbed. "I made the gamble of choosing you over Rosalie. It can't end like this," Nathan thought, gritting his teeth in anger. "I pray you forget me and find your happiness," she told him. He grabbed her hand. "Let us run away. We can escape from this place together, Ver," he said sternly. "Come with me to another country. We'll stay there until we gain your parents' approval and end your engagement." "You can trust me," Nathan pleaded. How insufferable. Does he think I'm some sort of pushover like Rosalie? Rita thought. "I shall prepare everything. All you must do is follow me," he added. At that moment, the door slammed shut. "Oh dear, who is suggesting elopement to my fiancé?" Blaine Shade asked with a grin, observing the startled Baron. "So, the man dared forget his station to convert my fiancé. It was you," he said with a smile. "Lord Shade," Rita exclaimed, startled as she pulled her hand away from Nathan Hector's grip. Blaine watched them calmly, his eyes gleaming with amusement. "I can tell how much he's enjoying this," Rita thought, recalling his words from his birthday party. "Had I refused his help, he would have been terribly put out," she said inwardly. Blaine approached them, a smug smile on his face. "Even amongst mere beasts, only the superior male has the honor of calming the female. You can't possibly think you're a better match for Lady Alberhart?" he asked Nathan with a grin. Nathan remained silent, knowing he couldn't compete with Blaine's status. "If the two of you elope for your sake alone, you'll leave the Alberhart's honor in the gutter. Is that not a concern to you?" Blaine's voice was serious. "It's refreshing how true his every word is," Rita thought, observing him. Nathan Hector sank into despair, unable to reply. From the look on Nathan's face, accepting Blaine's help was certainly a good idea, she mused. "If you are so determined to escape with my fiancé, I will mobilize every soldier of the Shade Dukedom to find you. You will most likely be caught and imprisoned for kidnapping the daughter of a count. And then Marquis Carter will see he chose the wrong man to work with," Blaine added, causing Nathan Hector to tremble and clench his fists. "Lord Shade, please honor your promise," she announced in tears. Nathan Hector thought, his face showing a mix of disbelief and surprise. "Promise? You granted me time to bid my final farewell to Baron Nathan. I beg you to keep your word," Rita pleaded, tears streaming down her face as she clutched herself. "Verta, to think she would stand so bravely for me. Can I really forget this woman and continue living as if nothing ever happened?" Nathan Hector thought as he watched her. Blaine nodded in agreement. "My lady, for this moment, do as you please," he said, turning away and walking out. "However, know that the next time we meet, you will be completely and utterly mine," he added before shutting the door behind him. Alone in the room, Rita slumped to the floor.
Verta.
Nathan Hector called, trying to catch her. Nathan, do you remember the legend from the East? Rita asked, recalling the tale of lovers she had shared with him in the pub. I love you with all my heart, she said, revealing a bottle of poison. In our next life and the life after that, I will always remember you, she told him with a smile.
Verta, what are you doing?
Nathan Hector asked, looking perplexed.
No, Verta,
he shouted as he watched her drink the contents of the bottle. Nathan Hector rushed towards her, holding Rita in his arms. Dear Ver, he murmured softly. Rita touched his face, drawing her last moments of life from him. Goodbye, my love, she said, her voice fading. Nathan Hector's tears flowed freely as he gently laid her down. Ver, I promise we will be happy. If it means I must follow the Reaper into the next life to be with you, I shall do so willingly, he declared, holding her hair with a determined gaze. He grabbed a bottle containing the same liquid that lay on the floor and drank its contents without hesitation. He collapsed beside Rita, lifting his trembling hand to rest on hers. The couple remained still, their hands intertwined. Yosha entered the room and was taken aback by the sight. What a scene, he commented, then moved to pick up Rita, cradling her in his arms. He poured a green potion into her mouth. Gradually, her eyes began to open. Rita remained silent as Yosha observed her closely. Ah, my head is killing me. What about Nathan? Rita asked, holding her head as though in pain. He's on the ground beside you, Yosha replied. Rita glanced at Nathan's lifeless form and smirked, satisfied that her plan had succeeded. I'm glad it worked, but I can't go through this again, she said, rubbing her cold body. I must ask you to leave now and please seal the door to this room. Until the ritual is over, no one should enter. Keep everyone out, Yosha instructed with a serious tone. Rita nodded in agreement and exited the room, closing the door behind her. In the room alone with Nathan Hector's lifeless body, Yosha carefully placed him on a carpet. Rita, curious about what the young sorcerer would do, tried to eavesdrop from outside the room. Yosha revealed a potion from her suit, his expression sharp as she recalled her earlier boast to Rita about her ability to create all kinds of potions. If all goes well, you will acquire a new body, Rita had promised, referring to Yosha's plan to use the potion to return to Tatum. Rita pressed her ear against the door, intent on hearing what was happening inside. I am keeping the promise I made to you, she whispered. Yosha poured the potion over both herself and Nathan Hector. Farewell, Nathan. I absolutely refuse to be reborn as your wife, Rita thought to herself as the bright light emanated from the room, signaling the completion of Yosha's ritual. Once the light faded, the two bodies lay still. Life surged back into Nathan Hector's form. He rose and picked up a knife, pressing it against Yosha's neck before slashing it. With cold determination, he continued to stab him. Trapped inside my body, Nathan is now truly dead, Yosha thought, having been reborn into Nathan Hector's body. Once Verta provides the proper travel documents, I can return to my beloved home, Yosha, now in Nathan's body, muttered as he continued with his grim task. 3 days later, Rita was still in the room, cleaning up the traces of blood. My word, he's got a personality as nasty as mine, she grumbled. He knew I couldn't pass this mess on to the servants. He should have been more careful. This has taken me 3 days. Ridiculous, she complained, continuing to scrub away the evidence of the bloody ritual. Still, I think I'm nearly done. I can just throw this out and buy a new carpet, Rita said, setting the folded carpet aside. Just then, Jana knocked on the door. Miss, are you there? She asked from outside. What is it? Rita replied. A guest has arrived, Jana informed her. Rita went to meet the guest and was surprised to find Rosalie Amber sitting there. I assumed the guest would be Nathan, so I didn't think to ask. What is she doing here? Rita thought, puzzled by Rosalie's presence. I apologize for not sending a calling card before coming, Rosalie said. Rita, taken aback, thought, she can't possibly be here to offer forgiveness to the woman who stole her fiancé? What a pushover, Rita thought, glancing absent-mindedly. My mother told me everything, Rosalie continued, tears welling in her eyes. She said you did all this for me. Pardon? I'm not sure what to think, Rita began, but Rosalie interrupted her. Nathan was having affairs with several women in the administrative department, wasn't he? I was told that once you found out, you did everything you could to make me give up on him. You even went as far as to work there yourself, Rosalie said. Rita recalled Felicia Carter's words about how much she cherished Rosalie. Seeing her daughter mope, must have made the lady decide to spin Nathan into a two-timer. What an admirable love, Rita thought to herself. I heard you and Nathan have already parted ways, and I've successfully called off our engagement, Rosalie said, rising from her seat and walking towards Rita. I truly like you. I don't need men. My only wish is for us to work together in charity for the rest of our lives, she said, hugging Rita warmly. Who said you could decide that on your own? Rita thought, uncomfortable with Rosalie's words. I can manage without a man, Rosalie said through her tears. Let go of me, Rita said inwardly. Rita, feeling conflicted, allowed Rosalie to cry on her shoulder. Fine, cry your heart out, she thought, accepting the situation.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.